Welcome to the Diary of Discovery, the podcast where we delve deep into the human experience of healing and transformation. I'm your host, Jackie Carr, and each week we will sit down with inspiring individuals who have embarked on their own personal journeys of healing and self-discovery. From overcoming trauma to navigating life's challenges, our guests share their raw and honest stories, offering insights, wisdom, and hope to all who tune in. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and join us as we uncover the power of resilience, courage, and the pursuit of authenticity. This is the Diary of Discovery. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am super excited to welcome yet again another amazing guest, and I'm going to hand straight over. Do you want to tell everyone who you are and where you are in the world?
Yeah, my name is Rachel Leduc, and I am from the States. I'm specifically in South Carolina. So yeah, coming to you guys from United States.
Amazing. It's so incredible to have you with us. Thank you for taking the time to come and share your healing journey. We're always so appreciative of people who come and share their journeys and help people. So we always start at the same point, which is taking people back to the start of your healing journey. So where did it start? What was going on? Like, what was the moment that you realized something had to change? Yeah, take us back.
Okay. So right now, one of the careers that I have, I'm a serial entrepreneur, is that I'm a divorce coach. And it came out of my own personal journey of being divorced and knowing like there had to be a better way through it. Like there's got to be a better way to get through this horrible process, not feeling emotionally, financially, mentally shredded. Because even like going through the divorce, I had my own coach, I had a life coach, I had a therapist, I had a lawyer, but I still didn't feel fooled in the way that I needed to. So for me, the divorce really came out of just necessity. I had attended a business conference that was led by a really popular influencer at the time in 2018. And the entire time she was talking about like, you can learn from your failure, you can grow, you can move beyond what you've been told, your business can become part of your identity and you can reintegrate it back into yourself. And it was just this whole message of you can get up and try again. And what I had been taught my whole life from birth into marriage was your failures are what define you. And don't try again because you're always going to have that nagging voice over your shoulder reminding you of your failure, reminding you of how you screwed up. Like, you better not do it again. Better not try. What if, what if, what if? And one of the exercises that they had us do at the conference was who are the people in your life that are the most negative, that are the most against you, that if you were to try again, would absolutely try to sabotage you or find a way to tell you that it wasn't possible. And one of the people on that list was my husband. And I was like, oh no. Like, I was shocked. I was there with my best friend. She actually paid for my ticket because I wasn't in a financial place to go. And she's like, you're going, we have to go. Like I'm paying, like, we're going to go. And thank God that she did because it started me down this whole path of growth. And she had all of these speakers there that talked about how they learned from their mistakes and how they grew and how they renewed their mindset and focused on gratitude and focused on goals. And I realized that over the period of my marriage, I had gotten so talked into being an alternate version of myself and just not the true expression of who I was that I didn't recognize myself anymore. And so I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to start growing and implementing these things while I'm still married. Let's get into marriage counseling. Let's see if it's going to work. And unfortunately, what happened is that the more I grew and the more I renewed my mindset, got into therapy. Because when you're in a bad marriage, you think and you've been told, hey, you're the problem, you start to believe it. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm a go-getter. I'm going to fix this. I'll fix myself. I'll get into therapy. And then I got into therapy and my therapist was like, yeah, you're not the problem here. So it was just this whole kind of awakening of my soul. And I realized that the first time I ever got to make a choice for myself in my life was when I was 37. And that's so I think I was like 35 when that conference happened. And I just started making decisions for me, what I wanted to do, getting back in touch with my gut, getting back in touch with myself, figuring out who that was, and then realizing that on this whole journey of life, I had I had left little parts of myself, right? Like there was like 3-year-old Rachel and 5-year-old Rachel and 9-year-old Rachel and 16-year-old Rachel and 18-year-old Rachel. And through the process of healing, it was like I had to make the choice to go back down that path and pick up those pieces of me and choose to reintegrate them back into myself.
Wow. Wow. Isn't it incredible, like how you can go on, and I mean, I'm also a serial entrepreneur, like I get it completely. And running your own business is definitely like the biggest self-development journey you're ever going to go on, like 100%. I think like it's just so amazing, like that was the start of your journey, that your friend was like, we're doing this, like I don't care. And that was the moment that like changed the trajectory and everything that came afterwards.
Yeah, it was really interesting how it happened because, like, when I got married, I jumped into being a wedding photographer. Like, I had been a photographer like my whole life. I just didn't know it. My parents, I used my allowance to like develop film, right? Like I always had a camera in my hand. My parents always were just like, "Do you have film at the store?" Because like it was the corner store up the road, right? I was just like, actually. So I think even when we moved states when I was 16, and I still had film that I had to like go pick up from the corner store before we moved. So I just didn't realize that like that was a profession you could get paid for because no one had ever told me, right? Again, confined, controlled, you're going to do what we want you to do. And um, so when I decided to become a photographer, it took off because I had all of the knowledge and the marketing kind of back in the recesses of my brain. And I became one of the number one photographers in Charlotte, North Carolina, like almost overnight. And I had done it so well that I was booked every weekend. Well, then my husband was just like, you know what? You're gone a lot. You're editing. You're not spending time with the family. And then we ended up with like this huge tax bill because of some financial mismanagement that happened. And that got held over my head for years of like, you owe this tax bill, it's your fault. And I just like crumbled from like number one photographer, featured in national magazines, you know, hoopla, like schedule fully booked to, oh my gosh, like, and now I have to make myself small because of like this one mistake. So 2 years after that, I shuttered the business. And that was the mistake that kept getting held over my head. And I was just like, but kept having this calling in my soul of start your own business, do it again. And so my focus went from like, okay, and oh my gosh, my uncle was so funny. So my uncle's like my pseudo dad. And he was like, I was like, I think I want to design a handbag. He goes, okay, that doesn't sound like you. I'm like, well, maybe I want to do this. Well, maybe I want to do that. Well, what if about, and he's just like, Rachel, you need to get divorced. He's like, get divorced and heal, and then let's recenter. I'm like, right. Okay. Let's do that first. Because I'm an Enneagram 8. So I'm like, I'm going to work my way out of this. And like healing became a goal at that point because I'm like, I just need to get to the other side of this so I can like do the thing that I actually want to do. But a lot of it just became me finding a really good therapist and journaling every day, setting goals. And one of the goals that I had was to get my master's. And I'd wanted to get my master's since I was like 18. Yeah. So the age of 38, I enrolled to get my master's in communications. And I was getting a divorce and my master's at the same time, which I never recommend to anybody. but it gave me this direction of there is something beautiful that is going to happen on the other side of this. And so now, like in my coaching practice with my clients, I'm like, okay, you're in the middle of the divorce. We're working through mediation. We're working through paperwork. I'm helping them stay grounded and set boundaries and stay emotionally centered and grounded and all of that. And then I'm like, okay, so what's the goal? What's the thing that we're going to focus on to help get you through this so that you know that there's life on the other side of this and you're not just like wallowing in your self-pity and woe is me. I'm like, because you can stay sad. You can be sad, you can be depressed, you can be upset, but don't live there. Like have a day, go watch Bridgerton and binge watch it on the couch, like do whatever you need to do, but don't live there. Don't make that where you stay. And then it was the best advice my therapist gave me. She's like, your 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 injury, these emotional injuries that have happened to you, you've got to let them heal. Because if you keep them gaping open, they will always be the thing that speaks to you. They will always be the thing that defines you. Like my mother-in-law, before she passed away, her husband had a heart attack, I think 8 years before she passed away. And every time you talk to her, it was like that heart attack happened yesterday. I should have called the ambulance sooner. I should have got him his nitro pills sooner. I should have been in the room. I should have done this. And she took his death so personally, but really, like the guy smoked like a chimney. He didn't take care of himself. Like long history of, alcohol and smoking and just not eating properly. So heart attacks happen to those who don't see the precautions and don't take care of themselves. But for years, 8 years, Jackie, she held this like it was yesterday. And I'm like, I can't live my life talking about my photography business like it happened yesterday. Like it's this failure being held over my head. I can't talk about my divorce like it happened yesterday. The control and the things that happened in my life, I can't talk about them like they happened yesterday. I have to let those things heal. I have to let them become a scar so I can look back at them and say, hey, look at this thing that happened to me. Here's a really cool story about it. Here's something that came out of it, right? So there's a difference. Like, are you gonna hold, I had to make the decision of like, are you gonna hold on to this stuff and let it be a wound? Or are you gonna let it become a scar? And are you just gonna have that amazing story to tell of what happened to you and how you came out the other side?
Yeah, I think that that's like it's such a beautiful way of thinking about it when you think about this like process. And I think when you when you move into scar territory, you are creating another chapter of the story. You're not just sitting and just ending the story at the point of just open wound, end story. That is now how life is. It's like that choice to be like, actually, this thing happened, but we're gonna go again. We're gonna try again. We're gonna figure out, we're gonna move forward. Like, yeah, there's that like that process of actually being able to say, I'm not done yet. And I think you hear so many people say this thing of like, um, would you like you would die for your children, but would you live for them? Like would you actually live the best possible life, etc., etc. And I think like it's that same thing of when you are in grief or in trauma, a lot of people will just stay, and even though they're living, they'll die on that hill.
Right.
Like they just won't let go or move on or navigate through or be willing to heal. And it's not easy. Of course, it's not easy. Like we 100% can say that. But at the
Healing
same
stuff.
time, like at some point, you have to say, actually, but I need to. move from here or do something different or try again, or whatever the phrase is for you that kind of works in that way. And I guess like I'm always interested to hear, like, what did you have to embrace about yourself or get to know about yourself to go on this journey? So like sitting in that training room, like having that realization that like, oh, actually shit, my husband's on this list and I'm gonna have to leave him at some point. Like, what did you have to accept about who you were as a person to go on that journey?
Oh my gosh, so many things. Like I became an alternate version of myself to be liked. I had become codependent. I'm probably the most independent codependent person you'll ever meet. Um, but I became very codependent, and I kind of became a little controlling, where I was just like I was using boundaries in an unhealthy way to control my environment because I was so afraid of getting hurt and getting controlled again that I in turn became that entity, right? I was just like, you can't control me. You can't, what is the, like, you can't tell me what to do, right? But I absolutely like had to let myself fall apart, and I had to be okay being the bad guy. Um, so I'm obsessed with Australian television, and I have downloaded a VPN on my phone so I can watch Married at First Sight. So one of the contestants in the show was in an abusive relationship, an emotionally abusive relationship. Athena. So she was in an emotionally abusive relationship. So many people saw it. And the show became very triggering for me when Adrian would get on and say the things that he did and would treat Athena the way that he did. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I wanted to just go over there and like hug hug her in that moment and just be like, this is not the end of your story. And one of the things that she said on the final episode, she was like, you know what? I'm fine being the villain in his story because he's the fucking devil in mine. And I wrote that quote down so quick, and I have it like scheduled on Instagram to go out in a couple weeks. But it like hit me so hard of like, if you are going to file for divorce from someone who appears to be so amazing, you are going to be the bad guy, regardless of what's happened behind closed doors that nobody else knows about. And you look like the perfect happy couple. When you file for a divorce, you are automatically the bad guy. I was the bad guy with my church, with our close friends, with people that we went to college with. Like, I had to fully embrace letting go of that people pleasing codependent part of me. Everybody has to like me, to, oh my God, I'm the bad guy in this story and no one's going to understand. And, when you're in situations like that, there's so much shame attached to it that you don't want to come out and say, like, what happened. But, like, I had to find the right people to tell my story to. So it's just like, when you're going through a tough season, you have to be okay letting yourself
Mm,
fall apart. And
yeah.
screw anybody who tells you that you have to have it all together when your life is literally falling apart at the seams. And one of my really good friends, she's like, listen, if you are able to break your life down to the dirt, like not even the foundation, like, because a lot of people consider marriage like one of the foundation, the cornerstones of your life, right? I'm like, I've got to get back to home base. Who am I? And that took dismantling my religion, dismantling everything that I thought about marriage, dismantling everything I thought about parenthood, me being
Mm.
parented. I dove like headfirst into attachment theory and Enneagram. And I'm like, I'm going to figure out who the fuck I am because I don't know who I am. So I've got to get back to home base before I can ever be okay being anything else.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It it's just I don't know, healing is just the craziest process when you start to actually look at the beliefs and what underlies it, and like people pleasing. Oh, it's one of the worst. Like, it's one of the literal worst. I suffered massively, and I mean, I still do to a certain degree. And it's just so interesting when you start to look at that thing of like, when you are the villain in somebody's story, which we all will be, no matter how good you are, no matter how kind you are, no matter like what you do, you will be the villain in somebody's story. It actually has nothing to do with you. Like, it actually has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. And one of my favorite quotes that I ever heard was this idea of other people's perception of me, like, are not my opinion. Like, other people's opinions of me have nothing to do with me. Like, they're not my business. They,
It's
mean nothing.
I think it's Glennon Doyle where she goes,
Yes.
other
Yeah.
people's opinions of you are none of your business.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the thing, like, when you go through and you look at that and you actually embody that, like, that's the difference. It's not just understanding it, it's actually embodying it. And you say, actually, this is the best decision for me. In this moment, this is the best decision for me. And realistically, the people who genuinely support you and genuinely care about you and genuinely want you to do well will be happy for the decisions that you make.
No matter what,
Anybody who
100%.
doesn't, yeah, anybody who doesn't is coming from their own personal, like, your decision is going to impact them somehow. And it's really interesting because when you go through and you look at things like divorce as an example, and you say, like, the relationship actually wasn't good, and then you tell, say, your friend groups or college groups or church groups or whatever it is, a lot of people don't want to accept that they weren't able to see it. They don't want to accept that you had to live in that space and feel unsupported and that you felt like you couldn't go to them. And they make it about them and not about you. And in that process, like, they're being really selfish, their own triggers, their own trauma, like, their own stuff is coming up. But it can make the person who's going through that feel so alone and so disconnected. And like, they can't say what they need to, or they can't, tell people what they need to. And it's so interesting because I've had some really big, like, defining moments in my life where I've sat on information and not wanted to tell people because I knew that they wouldn't be as happy for me as they should. I knew that it would come with that caveat of, oh yeah, yeah, but this can't impact me. And it's such an interesting thing, isn't it, when you actually have gone through that healing journey and you can look at it for what it is and you can go, like, I can see what's happening here, and I'm just not going to let it affect me anymore, and I'm going to do what I want anyway, and that's okay. Like, it's such a power that you have once you've actually recognized that what people are doing and what they're saying and where they're coming from has nothing to do with you. Like, it has got no reflection on who you are. It is just a pure reflection on who they are and what they're going through. I think, like, it's such a, like, an important thing for people to remember as they kind of go through healing journeys. So my next question to you is, as you were going through this, and obviously some of the times were hard, I'm sure, and some of the times were maybe a bit easier, of course, this is a roller coaster. Were there moments where you just thought, like, oh my gosh, like, I just can't actually do this, like, this is too much, it's too hard, I'm done? Like,
No, actually,
good.
no, because going through the divorce process was so much easier than being married. Like what I had to endure being married was nothing. Like, I'm sorry, let me say that. Um, Going through the divorce process and how hard it was and the things that I had to endure because the state that I live in, you have to be separated for a year before you can file for divorce. It's so messed up. And that was nothing compared to what I had to endure being married. Like I during that year of separation, I had the marital home, which I was then able to buy my husband out of, um, due to like think because we separated in the middle of COVID, right? Like lockdown happened March 13th. He left May 1st. And I was literally like, oh, we're going to lockdown. We're not going to make it. Oh no. Like, like I was just so anxious. I was like, we're not going to make it. So what I actually did is when we knew we were separating, we knew we were moving towards divorce, we knew it was over, I went and got a tattoo. And is this being video recorded?
Mhm.
Okay. So I went and got a tattoo. And on my forearm, I have persist. And I drew the flower, and that's my aunt's handwriting. And I put it in a prominent place to remind myself, keep going. It's hard, it sucks, but this is the first step of me being able to build my new life without being tethered. Like, if I'm going to do what I really want to do, and I'm going to do what I feel is my purpose and my calling in this world, which is to change the lives of women everywhere, I have to cut this cord. Like, I can't keep being made to feel small. I can't keep being made to feel wrong all the time. Like, I have to be able to make my own mistakes, live my life, do the things that I want to do, come hell or high water. If they fail, they fail. But at least it's my failure. And at least I can forgive myself and move on. Right. And I just want to circle back real quick to what you were saying about the friend group, right? So my friend group became very small. Like if you did not, if you weren't for me, I no longer talk to you. And it took me a long time to, again, relax that boundary because I became very like controlling of my environment to be able to heal. So like Brene Brown says, like all the boundaries when you first start healing, and then you like the pendulum kind of comes back to the middle and you're like, okay, I'm gonna release some of these boundaries and come back to something that's a little bit more reasonable. Okay. Um, but I saw this meme or something where it was just like as I have healed and grown, my circle of friends is no longer a circle, it's a dot. Because it's like I my vulnerability belongs to very few people. And if you are in that place in my life, that is a sacred, honored space. And if you do not treat that space as honored and sacred, then I'm sorry, you're going to have to go sit out on the front porch and you can come in when the other guests come in. But that's just the way that it is. Because in the process of healing, you have to have the people that around you that support you. But yeah, no, going through the divorce process, I was just like, again, that Enneagram 8 in me, like, became like divorce is a goal, healing is a goal, like we're going to do this thing. And I think that's part of the reason why I was able to get divorced within that year. Like we started the temporary hearing process, we had mediation, it turned into, we didn't have to go before a judge for the final hearing because of COVID. But in the middle of all of this happening, it was like I'm diving deep into therapy, I'm getting my master's, I have a life coach, and it's like I am not going to let this define me. I am going to write in my journal and dig into this and be grateful for all of the lessons that life has taught me because it's this mix of I always thought that I could only be one thing, right? Like I'm sad, I'm mad, I feel bad. And then my therapist is like, so here's the feeling wheel, the wheel of emotions. It's like, okay, so we're gonna start at bad and then we're gonna like keep moving out until we identify the right feeling, right? I was just like, Oh, I'm actually sad. Oh, I'm actually depressed. Well, are you hopeless or are you just depressed? I'm like, oh, well, no, I'm not hopeless. I'm just depressed. Okay, well, then let's work on that. So, but one of the things that she was really great about was like, you can be two things. You can be happy that your divorce is ending and totally mad at how the process is going. You can be happy that this person is no longer in your life and absolutely sad that this person is no longer in your life. Like those two things can coexist. So when I
Mhm.
realized those things that I could hold these two things at the same time, everything unlocked for me.
Mm.
Because my whole life I had been told how to feel or what to feel or I couldn't feel. Like you have to be
Mm.
happy, you have to be thankful, you have to be grateful. Anger is a bad emotion. Don't be depressed. Don't be sad. Go for a run. Therapy wasn't really a thing, right? It was like, go outside, go on a walk, like have a scoop of peanut butter, right? Like you just need some protein. You'll be fine. Um, but the healing journey is so complex, right? And I'm walking these women through, again, being allowed to feel two things.
Mhm.
And it's like, I was there. Like I remember it. Like I remember being absolutely devastated after mediation when we had to like sort through the belongings of our lives and the
Mm.
financial details of like who's paying for who. And like we got out of a 10-hour mediation and I just collapsed, like emotionally,
Mm.
physically collapsed. I was just done. But then I remember being so happy that I had paperwork that was definitive that we could submit to a judge to have it signed off on. Um, because a lot of the women that I'm talking to right now, like their divorces have been dragging on 18, 24, 36. I'm talking with a woman right now where she's been separated for over 2 years. And like they're still waiting to submit final paperwork with an agreement to the judge. And my heart is just breaking for her because like these people need closure. They need they need this to be over. So it's like, okay, so how can we help you hold two things at the same time, right? You want it to be over, you're frustrated, but where's the gratitude in the middle of that? What's a goal that we can set in the middle of that to kind of help you find a pathway out? So again, you're not sitting in the sadness and the anger and the depression and the bad, right? Feel the bad, but don't let it consume you. Like let's find you a pathway out that not only helps you look forward to it being over, but may help you push your lawyer along to help you get to that other side, right? So yeah, the healing, the main part of healing for me was, okay, I do not have to feel the way everybody has told me that I need to feel my whole life. Like I can just feel how I feel, and that's okay. And
Mm.
then I'm going to have the right people around me that allow me to feel what I need to feel.
Yeah. I think that like for so many people that I've spoken to, that unlocking of emotions, that like realization around emotions is such a big part of the puzzle. And I know like I had the same thing in understanding the spectrum of emotion and understanding that I could feel two things at once. And especially when it came to grief, like that was the big thing for me, like losing somebody and then trying to balance that grief and then the happiness and then the guilt that I'm happy and then like it was just like so many emotions to try and hold that you're just like I don't know how I can be all of these things and I don't know if this is possible and there's like no one ever teaches children, young adults, like about emotions or about the spectrums of them, about how we move through them. Like it's such an interesting thing because especially as women, like we're always told that, anger's really, anger's not a good emotion and it's not good to be seen as difficult or be frustrating to other people or, like there's very, yeah, exactly. There's this very like defined, like what you should and shouldn't be, isn't there? Like for girls and It's so interesting when you actually start to break all of those down and you start to actually be like, actually, if you're being a dick to me, then I can be annoyed. Like I can be mad. I can be frustrated. Like what on earth? And I think it's so like it gives women so much power when they actually realize that they're allowed to have a full spectrum of emotion, that they're allowed to feel all the things that they're feeling, that they're allowed to be wildly happy and wildly sad at the same time. And I'm always like, so I've had a multitude of coaches throughout my journey of healing as well. And I'm always brought back to one of the coaches that I worked with. She was just like the most incredible person at living life in the moment and just being so present and being so exceptional at feeling what she was feeling and at articulating for other people to kind of go through. And I remember she actually lost a child, lost like a baby in a miscarriage, and it was so it was so incredible and so inspiring to watch her go through that and to have all of the range of emotions, to
Yeah.
be in absolute grief and absolute agony, but still be in complete awe of her body and still, absolutely love the life that she had and the partner that she had and the baby, her young daughter that she had. And like it was just so amazing. I remember like going through and just witnessing that process. And for the first time ever, actually going, oh yeah, we can be all of these things, like all at once as well. It doesn't have to be one at a time. It doesn't have to be this or that. It doesn't have to go in any order or be in any box or fit in any structure. Like, actually, just having these amazing role models who are like, you can feel anything you want to feel as you go through this process. And you can also go through the process however you need to.
Yeah.
Like there's no right or wrong. I think that that is so powerful for people to understand.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that helped me the most was my now husband. So we started dating again. I told you like I had to find home base, right? So I waited 18 months to date. And then it was like 3 months later, I met my now husband. He walked into my best friend's garage carrying a kayak. So like not the dating apps or anything like that, which I would like, I hate the dating apps. They're awful. Um, but I had my ex-husband had taken me back to court for something that was ridiculous, and I was mad. I was so freaking mad. And he had had a particularly rough day with his ex, and we had planned to go into Charlotte and have like this super nice dinner, and we were gonna dress up. And he's calling me, he's on his way over, and I'm like, I've just had a shit day. He goes, me too. I'm like, I don't think I can do dinner tonight. He goes, what do you need? I love that question. It's like the number one question I always ask people now. I'm like, okay, what do you need? Right? So attuned. What do you need? I'm like, so I don't know if you have these where you are, Jackie, but we have rage rooms here where, yes, you do. Okay, awesome. So he's like, I'm like, I just need to break shit. Like, I just need like an hour or something in a room, and I just need to break shit. He's like, hold please. And before this man got to my house, he had booked 30 minutes for both of us in this rage room in Charlotte, and then like reservations at this little like mom and pop like entrepreneur foodie restaurant, which we love, like we hate going to chains. And it was so therapeutic for me for somebody to like put a baseball bat in my hand and be like, okay, go to town. And I went like full on office space on a printer. It was like the most glorious thing ever to just be able to embrace my anger and get it out. And then like a couple weeks later, because they always cycle, right? So like a couple weeks later, a couple of my friends were just like, I just need to go out into a field and scream. And I'm like, let's do it. And like one of these girlfriends had like her parents owned a farm out like an hour outside of Charlotte. And we're like, let's go. And we literally just went out to a field and like screamed for like 30 minutes. But it was so like, and at the end of it, we're crying. And then we like are all laughing together because like how crazy it was. We got like these four middle-aged women screaming in a farm field, like somewhere out in the country, right? And like people probably think somebody's dying. Um, and it was hard for me to actually like vocalize that scream that I needed to get out. I knew it was in there. But I had exactly what I just told you going through my head. What if somebody thinks we're dying? What if what if the cops come? What if we wake somebody up? What if there's chickens and they start crowing? Like, what if we attract wild animals? And I'm telling one of my friends that she's like, Rachel, will you just fucking scream already? I'm like, oh my God. But I went from screaming my lungs out to get this anger and this frustration out of my body to crying and having a complete emotional release on the other end of the spectrum to laughing. But I fully believe that, like, if you are angry, you have to get that out first because that is the lid for all of the other emotions that you want to feel. Because normally, when anger is speaking, it's actually grief. It's actually sadness. It's actually depression. It's actually injustice. And normally, all of that is tied to the first response is anger. And you can't get to the other emotions until you address that anger and let it out. And whether that's like you go boxing or you like go work out, you like run, you scream, you go to a ranger room, whatever it is, like you've got to deal with that anger. And you've got to do it without being afraid of what anybody else is going to say. And honestly, like now that I'm looking back and talking to you because I'm a verbal processor, I think that letting that anger out and screaming with those girls was the first step in breaking my people pleasing.
Mm.
Because I couldn't worry about anybody else when I was doing that. I had to let it out for me.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And like, yeah, I love that idea of like anger being the lid of all the other emotions. Like I think a lot of people are too scared to admit that they're angry about something. Like it's been built into us for so long, like just in every single system that there is, that anger is not a good emotion. And actually, that's a load of nonsense. Like it has its place depending on how you create actions from your anger. Can obviously your actions could be bad, of course, but the anger itself and the emotion itself is not a bad thing. I think it's yeah, it's so important for people to know that and to understand that and to really kind of go through and be able to feel all of that stuff. So I think like that's so it's yeah, it's so incredible. And so I always ask people obviously like you know if they went through their healing, if it sort of changed anything about the work that they were doing or the way they were showing up. And obviously you've already said to us like it changed massively. You're now a divorce coach, you're helping people in this space, which is incredible. And I guess like my question would be like, what is the actual advice? Like, if somebody's listening to this, maybe they're still in a relationship that they're not happy with, maybe they're in the process of going through a divorce, like maybe they're on the other side and they are struggling with the process. Like, what would your advice be for somebody going through and trying to heal in this divorce space?
The first thing I would say is you've got to get fear out of the driver's seat. Like when you decide to step onto the path of healing or step onto the path of divorce, and normally they happen around the same time, um, fear is the first thing that will jump in and try to start driving your car. What if this? What if that? And it you can move forward, but you can't go very far. And if you're crippled by fear, you've got to get fear out of the driver's seat. And the only way that I've found that you can get fear out of the driver's seat is to face what you're afraid of. And then the other thing is you've got to figure out what your core values are. Because if you're not living out of your core values, which are, mine are sitting on my desk to remind me every single day, like I move out of love, health, growth, courage. Those are my core values. So when fear tries to jump into the driver's seat of my life, I'm like, nope, because what you're throwing in my face and all of these what ifs, they're not rooted in love. They're not rooted in family. They're not rooted in growth. They're not rooted in courage. And one of the reasons I put courage on my core values list is because it's the opposite of fear. So if I'm afraid, I'm not moving in courage. So, like, what are your core values? Like, that's going to get fear out of the driver's seat super quick, right? And then the second thing is, again, I'm going to quote Glennon Doyle, right? Like, we can do hard things. You can do hard things. Like, I'm terrified of needles. I went and got a freaking tattoo. I'm now looking at getting a second one, right? Because it's true what they say, like they're a little addictive. But like you've got to face what you're afraid of, but you've got to face it not out of fear, not out of anger, out of those core values that are in your heart, in your soul, in your body, the things that you feel. And to get down to those core values takes really coming to terms with who you are in an unapologetic way and being really brave about stepping into a new chapter. So a lot of people were getting on me. About 2 years after I got divorced, I got the opportunity to be part of a memoir and a book. And I wrote the final chapter. It's called Deserts to Mountaintops. And it went #1 bestseller on Amazon in 13 different categories back in 2022. And above my monitor, because I wrote stories about my childhood, I put some stuff in there about my marriage. And I didn't let my mom read the book chapter before it got published. And it turned into a little bit of a scuttlebutt. And one of the things that I tacked above my monitor every time I would write was Anne Lamott's quote, which was, "You own everything that happened to you. Tell your stories. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better." And I will live and die by that quote. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. It's like with Taylor Swift, right? Like, don't piss off a writer. You will live in infamy. Like, just don't do it.
It's so true, isn't it? But like, and again, it's the more that you heal and the more that you realize that that is the truth, the easier life becomes because you are not responsible for how other people act. You are not responsible for what they do and the choices that they make. And you have no control over what they do. And trying to live in that space where you say, I'm responsible for this person or this person's happiness or the actions that they take or the way that they show up. Like it's never ever going to take you down a good path. It's never going to get you. And I don't mean like parents, you're responsible for your small children, look after them, don't let them, don't let them come to harm. But like adults and in that space of like once people can make their own decisions,
Mhm.
that's it. Like you no longer have control over other people, and you've got to accept that in that process.
Yeah, and one of the markers for my coaching and in my life really has been their response is not my responsibility. Like their response is not your responsibility. Like you are responsible for your truth, your story, what you want to do, your purpose, your calling, your life, your emotion, right? You control what you can control. And you do the things that you feel led and called and purposeful to do with your life. And their response is not your responsibility. That was the ultimate
Absolutely.
people pleasing, like nail in the coffin that's dying. You know, it's another one of my sticky notes, like I love sticky notes. And it's just like for I think years, it was just their response isn't your responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that is like such an amazing quote for people to stick up somewhere where they get to see it every day because yeah, especially people pleasers, like moving away from that people pleasing. And a lot of people who heal move away from that people pleasing, which I think is so, so important as people go on this journey. So, okay, final question for the podcast. I love this question. I don't think my guests love it as much as I do, but I love it anyway. I always like to ask people, what's your next level of healing? What's the thing that you're focusing on, or the thing that's coming up for you at the moment that you are working through?
I am working on building a community of these women who can be vulnerable and share and be together and understand that just because they have a broken marriage, that they're not broken. And while they are going through this horrible process, they're not horrible people. And it's, for me, it's having to get over the fear of I'm not good enough. What do I have to offer these women? How can I create this thing that other people are telling me that they need and lead it well and do it well? And again, it's that failure voice in the back of my head saying, you've got ADHD. How are you going to be consistent? Like, how are you going to make this work? You don't have enough content. And I had a really good friend speak to me yesterday, and she goes, it's needed. And you've got to move through this fear and build this community because you are going to build something that nobody else has, that everybody walking through this process needs.
Mm.
And so, you know, the next stage for me really is being effective with more than just one person, one-on-one coaching, which I love. It's very comfortable for me right now because I've been doing it for a bit. But I really feel called to reach women on a global scale and change the world. I have to be willing to not be afraid and take my own advice and step into this next phase, because I really believe that as I step into this next season, this next phase of my healing and my calling, that something's going to heal inside me, whether it's like the limiting beliefs, the things that I've believed about myself, this overwhelming fear of rejection that I've dealt with since I was born, like all of, okay, maybe those things in me are finally going to get healed as I see this next step come to fruition and be actualized. So yeah, that's the next thing.
That's so exciting. I literally love that so much. Oh my gosh. I always find it so incredible for our listeners to get that chance to see that actually, even though the main trauma might have been healed, like there's still levels of bettering your life and going through like new things and healing more and finding new levels. And I think it's just so inspiring. And thank you so much. Like, honestly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for being part of this, this movement that we're creating in the world. And as always, we'll put links to your Instagram and all of the good things underneath the podcast so people can reach out and they can come and get involved in your community, which sounds incredible. And just, yeah, thank you so much for spending the time. Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of the Diary of Discovery. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends, family, or anyone else you think might benefit from the stories of hope and transformation. Your feedback means the absolute world to us, so please take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us to reach even more listeners and continue to bring this meaningful content to the world. Until next time, remember, your healing journey is valid. You are never alone, and you have the strength to get through this. Keep shining bright, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Diary of Discovery.